Hey guys, in today's video, I've got a special guest in the studio. It's my friend Gabriel, known as Scionaugh.
Hello, it's great to be here.
So Gabriel has just released a new EP on a local label here in Australia called Universal Tribe. So his EP is titled Constantly Curious. The links will be in the video description below. Check it out. Today he's going to be teaching you how to make a sound similar to the sounds that you're going to hear in that EP. So he's going to take over and talk you through it. So enjoy.
Hello everyone, my name is Scionaugh. My real name is Gabriel. It's a pleasure to be here teaching on collective intelligence today. And today I'm going to be making a psychedelic squelch sound with Serum, which sounds something like this. Pretty cool. Lots of movement in there, and probably a sound you've heard before, but maybe you've even seen a video on it before. But hopefully I'll be able to show you a few extra tricks to really give it width and movement. So we'll start off with our MIDI information, make it out to 4 bars today. Okay, we'll drag in a brand new Serum patch. And we're going to start off, before we start with this, just talking about the theory of saw waves and what is going to be the fundamental source of these poppily squelchy sounds which we want to capture. So there's the saw wave, the old classic, everyone's heard that a lot. But when you drop it down to into the -1, -2 range, you start to hear something very different. It's just pops. You know, all of the other harmonics have disappeared, and all you can hear are these little pops. And those pops are actually occurring when the speaker comes out to this position here and immediately jumps to a negative position. And because the speaker can't move at infinite speed, when it makes that jump, a little artifact is created, which is that popping sound you hear. And today, that's actually what we want to base our sound design around. So when you're choosing a waveform for this, I highly encourage experimenting with lots of different waveforms, because that's really how you get unique texture to your sounds. But the ones that are going to work best are any waveform with a vertical drop like this that forces the speaker to move infinitely quickly. So I'm going to choose a pulse width today. But I do highly encourage you to experiment with different waveforms as well. That's very important. We'll start off by giving it some pitch modulation. So I'm going to drag my macro onto the coarse pitch here, go to the matrix and change the type to unidirectional, and then go -24 dB, 24 steps, sorry. So that's 2 octaves. Let's have a listen to that. Okay, we've pretty much all got, it's just all pops right now. Now I want it to go from an audible square wave down into this poppy range. So I'm going to move this back up to E1. Let's test this. Awesome. That's going to sound really good. Now, for this tutorial, I'm using macros. And the reason why I'm using a macro instead of an LFO is because I highly recommend to use macros for things and then automate those macros, even if you're going to use LFOs on the macros. And this is because recently with my music, I've really been trying to use single instruments to make as many different sounds as possible. So if you're able to create very dynamic instruments, then you'll be able to generate more sounds from them. So you'll spend less time doing the nitty-gritty sound design and more time making really cool sounds. And the best part about it is that every sound that you make from the same synthesizer is going to work really well together. So it's going to give your tracks this really cohesive feeling, and it creates the effect that one sound is actually turning into another sound and turning into another sound. And I think that that is really psychedelic. So I'm going to configure the macro here and then grab one of Ableton's LFOs. And put it on the macro. So once again, could have easily just used an LFO for this, but the macro allows me to manually do the automation later on in the tune and have more precision and more variation in it. Change that to 2 bars. And on triangle wave, see how that sounds now. All right, we've got the foundation for our sound here now. The next thing we want to do is we want to use a bandpass filter on 24 to isolate certain frequencies as the pitch is changing. So I'm going to turn the resonance up and the fat, and this means that this area right here is what's going to be the focus of the sound. So when it's up in the poppy range, we can hear here, we want the filter to be up here because it's really capturing those little pops. But when the wave is back in its middle position, it actually sounds a lot nicer to have the filter down here. There. So we're going to macro that as well. There it is. There's the basics squelch, which you hear all the time. We could grab some delay on ping pong. And there you go. There's the beginning of like every single forest track, but we're not going to do that today. All right, now how can we give it more movement and just really make it unique? So what I like to do is I like to think of effects that we can put onto this macro, which will affect it at different points in the squelch's cycle. So the first thing is this detune here. We'll give it 3 voices and have a listen. Now when the filter is down in this range, I can hear that it gives it a really nice width. But when the filter's up here, this detuning effect, it kind of smudges the pops, and it means you don't get those really crisp pops at the top of it. So I'll put this macro on the detune so that, oh, that's the opposite way of what I want. There we go. So when it gets to the poppy part, it's just a single waveform playing, but as it goes down, they spread out. Nice. Now I want to emphasize that spreading effect. So I'll drag the macro on your hyper and dimension. Opposite way again. Nice. Now let's try the phaser effect as well. Now I'm going to listen for when I think the phaser effect sounds best through the squelch's cycle. And personally, I actually think it sounds really good on the poppy end of it. So I'll drag this onto here. So that when the sound is wide, it's not phasing the sound, but when it turns into that mono sound at the end, then it starts to put a lot of phaser on there. Now the other thing I'm hearing is that the deep section of the sound is quite loud, but the poppy bits which we really want to emphasize are quite quiet. So I'll use a compressor to bring those all to a similar level. There we go. Quick attack and release because we want every single pop to be affected by the compressor. Ratio up to about 6, and then we'll turn the gain up a bit. Yeah, now we're really getting those crispy tops coming through. But that's about it for the general sound design of this. You could also use FM as well if you wanted to introduce that at at some point in the cycle. I wouldn't go too crazy with any waveforms. Maybe just the sine would be nice. And if I put that on here, we might find down an octave. Oh, it's really smudging the tops, which is not really what I want to go for with this sound, but that is a cool effect. We'll try it in the opposite direction. Oh. I don't think I'm going to use this today, but that's just an example of another thing that you could use. Alright, I'm going to do one more serum tip while we're here. I actually learned this one from an Entendre video a long time ago when I was first starting out producing. And that is how to add a gate to this signal. So I'm going to make a square here and put it on the level. There we go. We could have a macro for the rate. And now if we jump over here to the matrix and we put the auxiliary source for this to macro 2. It only affects it when macro 2 is working. Although, as you can hear, when you have the macro 2 to 0, nothing happens. So you actually need to invert this. Might want to just flip this. Cool stuff. Okay. Now, let's jump out of Serum and look at something else that we can do within Ableton and the Ableton audio warping algorithms to really give some more variation to this sound. But first of all, what I'll do is I'll turn the xylophone off now. We've done our sound design. We know what it sounds like through the full range of the sound, and we can start automating this manually for maximum control. Hit automation, and I want something like that. There we go. So we will route Serum 3 into audio and put the monitoring on and hit ARM, and that records that into this audio channel right here. Click and drag, hit tab, and you can jump straight into the arrangement view. That's a crazy sound, but we're going to add some more variation to it now. Listening here, there's this point where it levels out right there. So we'll add our first warp marker there, second one there, and I want to stretch this all the way out to the 5 bar mark. See what that sounds like now. It's actually pretty cool on its own. But what's happening here is we've grabbed the audio, and the audio was this far apart, and we've stretched it, and now you see there's all these empty spaces here. But Ableton doesn't actually play those as empty spaces. It fills them in with what it thinks is the best way to fill them in without changing the sound. But you can actually tell it how to fill in that space. And you do that by going right down here to this beat section here. And Ableton has built in 6 different algorithms which explain how it's going to fill in those spaces. So let's just have a listen to those now. Oh, this is the section. There it is. That's tone, texture, repitch. Oh, that's not going to be useful in sound design techniques. Complex Pro. They all generate pretty awesome sounds, but I'm going to use texture and beats. Now, I like using texture because with texture, you have two different knobs here that you can change, where with the other ones, it's generally only one. And for so long, I thought, oh, this texture knob just sounds so cool, doesn't it? If only we could automate that. And you hit there, nope, can't automate it. That's a bummer. But actually, if you jump over here to the envelopes and hit grain size, you can add grain size modulation to the clip itself, which means that you kind of can automate it. So I'm going to have it going from 100%, which is this value here, down to 0. But actually, I think I want to do it the opposite way. So let's pull the audio back to where it was. And now remember, this isn't stretched. So what we're doing down here is not going to change it at all. This is warping algorithm. So it's only applied if you warp the sound. Let's see what this sounds like. Pretty cool. I think it would be nice if it, if we came into that a little bit. So grab this and just give it a little bit of a stretch. It's pretty awesome. And from there, it's endless. You know, you can consolidate it again. You could duplicate it out twice and do even more. Maybe add some transposition automation. Opposite way to the grain size. Possibilities are endless. That's all we've got time for today. I'm really happy that I got to come on the show. My name's Scionaugh. I have a brand new EP out, which is about 33 minutes of these weird squelchy noises being played over kick bass percussion. It's called Constantly Curious. You can check it out on SoundCloud and Bandcamp. I'm sure there'll be links for all of those things in the description. Thanks for having me, Andrew. It's been a pleasure.